Welcome to Politics for Patriots. Here's your host, the eviscerator of progressive nonsense, the executioner of imbecility, and the grim reaper of BS, Eddie Zipper.
All right, welcome to episode 64 of the Politics for Patriots podcast. If you have not yet, please subscribe on iTunes and leave a review on iTunes. Remember, you can listen to old episodes of the show on iTunes or on my website, www.eddiezipperer.com. That's www.eddiezipperer.com. All right, this is going to be a funny episode today. In a few minutes, I'm going to give you some suggested alternatives to the word wall. Some of them are mine, some were submitted by my Twitter followers, but I promise they're going to make you laugh, so please hang around for that. All right, right now, in Washington, D.C., in our Congress, there is a conference committee made up of representatives and senators from both parties. And they have been tasked with working out an immigration border security compromise before the 3-week continuing resolution runs out on February 15th. I keep hearing that one of the main points holding up a compromise is the use of the word wall. Apparently, Democrats are not big fans of the word wall. It's a cold and prickly word. It's a feelings herder. It's a trigger. So we gotta call it something else. Peggy Noonan wrote a piece about it in the Wall Street Journal called Mr. President, Tear Down That Word. Here's what Peggy Noonan said. At their best, Democrats oppose the wall as a matter of political aesthetics. A big, fat, glowering slab of concrete on the edges of America is brutalist, unlovely, aggressive. That's not who we are. The word wall has become as symbolic to them as it is to the president. When they add, but I'm not for the wall, they are telling their immigrant constituents, I don't fear you, I'm for you. The Democrats must defeat the president on that one word. The president should let them while pretending that it pains him. It seems ridiculous, but maybe there's some truth to this. Democrats are pretty ridiculous much of the time. They do love their doublespeak. They love euphemistic language, right? They're obsessed with everyone's words, and they think that words matter more than actions. Words matter more than anything. And it's not just Democrats. This happens with Republicans, too. It's the political elitists of every party. It's that whole Washingtonian personality. I'll give you a favorite example right off the top of my head about one of the things, about it, just an example of the words mattering so much. Actions mean nothing. What you've done mean nothing. Only the words matter. And my favorite example of this is during the 2016 GOP primary. During one of the debates, Dr. Ben Carson used the term Siamese twins instead of the term conjoined twins. And actual media pundits were triggered by this. You know who they are, the fingernail chewers. Oh, did he say that? Oh, no, you can't say that. They're so worried about what other people say. Oh, my gosh, Siamese twins, I can't believe he said that. Oh, shame on him, shame on Dr. Carson. We say conjoined twins. And you're like, maybe Dr. Carson doesn't know we switched to a more PC term because he was too busy actually developing ways to actually help them. Right? Dr. Carson was doing the actual genius work of improving their lives, which only 1 out of a billion people can actually do. I think it's okay if he whiffs on the approved terminology. But that's what the left does. That's what PC culture is about. A lot of people think PC culture is just about being an annoying, bossy, elitist. It's just a form of snobbery that's stupid but ultimately benign. It actually does the thing that it claims to fix. Right? It is supposedly designed to stop stigmatization, but it actually stigmatizes. Right? It's like, sometimes it's like we all live in a British manners comedy from the 1800s. Right? The greatest comedies ever created for the stage, all they did is simply mock the manners of elitists, of people like this, people who make up manners and then demand that everybody go along with those manners. And they chew their fingernails and clutch their pearls if anyone goes against the manners. So here's what they do. They take a word, they weaponize it, then they stigmatize you for saying it. Or to be more current, they take a hat, they weaponize it, then they stigmatize you for wearing it. Here's what it sounds like when that is happening. This is Chris Cuomo on CNN actually comparing MAGA hats to wearing a shirt that says, "I hate black people."
I don't want to fall into the trap of underselling the significance of the trigger of the expression to people. I think the more appropriate analogy to say is if people were wearing shirts and that said, "I hate black people," would he be okay to say, "Don't come into my place with that"? And I think most people would be like, yeah, that's how people like him see the MAGA hat. Yeah. So does that make it okay?
So that's not at all completely unhinged.
You'd be creating a space for violence to happen.
If anybody thinks that that is actually what the red MAGA hat means when they see it, if that's the symbol, it's because they watch CNN and they hear morons repeating that all day long. There's no other reason to think that that's what that hat means. That whole segment, I just played a tiny bit of it, but that whole segment is just insane. Okay, if you are a person with an ounce of common sense, you know that that is not what a MAGA hat means. A MAGA hat is no different than a Romney hat. Well, I won't say it's no different. It's a little different because there are actually people in this country who own a MAGA hat. But in essence, it's no different than an Obama hat or a Bernie Sanders hat or any other hat that is a campaign hat. Okay, everyone with common sense knows that. So why would Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon say these ridiculous things, that this hat means all these things that are just insane, that it obviously does not mean these things? The reason is because their goal is not to be informative or insightful or correct, right? Other people want to be informative, insightful, correct. This is not the goal of leftist pundits. They do not want to be informative. They do not want to be insightful. They do not want to be correct. They don't want to be any of those things. Their goal is simply to stigmatize the hat. They're creating manners. They are signaling to everyone in their audience that Trump support will not be tolerated in polite society. Right? They're talking about people having this perception that they are actually busy creating. That's why people have the perception, because they created it. And now they're talking about the perception that they created. And that further perpetuates it. Okay, if you are smart, and if you listen to this show, I have no doubt that you are, you probably spend a lot of time wondering how educated, smart people could have stupid opinions like this. And the answer is that they aren't offering opinions or insight. They are simply creating manners. They're shaping society to look the way they want it to look. They are telling people what perceptions to have. Right? This happens all over the country all the time. The left wants to control you and to control society. Look at the abortion issue and how they've gradually managed to stigmatize anyone who is pro-life. If you're pro-life now, it means that you hate women. Nobody with a brain believes that. But they've gradually created that stigma by just repeating it all the time. That's how radicals win fights. Because they know that people don't respond to bad arguments, which is all they have is bad arguments. And they know that that's not going to convince anybody. They know it's a waste of time to use their bad arguments to convince people. But you know what people do respond to? Ridicule. People do respond to being labeled. If you believe this, then you are that. If you are pro-life, then you're a woman-hating religious zealot. People don't want to be a woman-hating religious zealot, so they adopt the manners. They don't tell anybody, if they are still pro-life, they just keep quiet about it because they don't want to be labeled a woman-hating religious zealot. Who would want to be that? That's a horrible thing to be. That's a horrible thing to have people think that you are. Alright, so it's the path of least resistance. It works really well on cowards. It's essentially the most basic technique of bullying, only on a larger, grander scale. The bully holds you down, you surrender your lunch money, and then the bully lets you up. I apologize if you can hear my dogs barking in the background, but the FedEx guy just drove by and they are telling me about it from the other room. Alright, so where was I? Let's see. Okay, we're talking about opinions that stigmatize. Opinions that stigmatize people are on TV, on the 24-hour news all day long. Let's just have public policy arguments instead of labeling people and stigmatizing them. Let's have real opinions and real commentary instead of attempts to stigmatize through creating manners. Right? This is the problem. Real arguments are not a potent weapon, but ridicule is. It's tough to change someone's mind by citing facts and data. It's easy to change someone's mind by telling them that they are racist if they don't change their mind. Most people aren't reasonable, but everyone, almost everyone, wants acceptance. Okay? So one of Alinsky's rules for radicals is ridicule is man's most potent weapon. And that's all they're doing. They're just ridiculing people. They're labeling you if you don't believe what they tell you to believe. They are creating a stigma. They are telling other people, oh, that person hates you if they believe X. So a wall is one of these things now. If you believe in building a wall on the border, you're stupid and you're racist. And the reason for that is because that's the only way that they can argue against it. Is through that ad hominem that stigmatizes you. They can't argue against it with arguments, real arguments, with reason, because there are no good arguments. I mean, the only real argument against the wall is we want people to be able to illegally enter the country. And if you put a wall up, it will be much harder for them to do that. That argument doesn't really work. That's not going to fly with too many people. That's not going to convince anyone. Alright, so instead we get things like what Nancy Pelosi said, that walls are immoral. That is ridiculous and makes no sense. How are they immoral? Why isn't she pushing to tear down the ones that we already have? Oh, because those are fences. Okay, so it's about semantics. But if that's what they want, and it's manners that are important to them, well, I've come up with some alternate terminology for the wall that I think they're going to find much more acceptable. Senator Kennedy said that the Democrats can call the wall a wangdoodle if they want, but I think we can do better than that. I think we can offer up a piece of doublespeak that the Democrats will really, really appreciate. All right, I had some people help me out with this on Twitter. The Politicked podcast, which is a smart, mostly conservative podcast that I really enjoy, they suggested that we call it The Mexican-American Elevated Border Visage Tower and Parkour Course. Steven suggested the Chuck Schumer Nancy Pelosi Political Career Memorial. I love it, but I think they're going to see through that one. All right, Dark Poplar suggested territorial demarcation. That disguises it a little bit, but if any Democrats actually know what those words mean, they're going to realize it's the opposite of open borders, and we cannot risk that happening. All right, Papa Bear suggested the Infinite Campaign Finance and Voter Registration Center. That's the exact opposite of what it actually is, so I'm thinking that we should try to disguise a little more and not outright lie. DW says the Undocumented Arrival Welcome Fence. I love that one, except the word fence, which I know will put off the Democrats. Change that to, I think we could change that to Undocumented Arrival Welcoming Mechanism. And I think he's on to something there, if we just change that one word. All right, so here are the three that I came up with from my least favorite to my most favorite. Number 3 is the point of entry encouragement apparatus. I think this one works really well. The word entry has a nice open borders feel to it, even though having points of entry is the opposite of having open borders. The word encouragement is a warm, fuzzy word, which we want it to be full of warm, fuzzy words because Democrats operate more on feelings than on actually using their brains in any sort of functional way. And the word apparatus hasn't been stigmatized yet, like the word wall or something like, or fence. So this is a great euphemism, and it does exactly what it says. It encourages those who want to enter illegally to instead seek out a point of entry and enter legally. It does that by obstructing their path. It's not really chantable. I mean, you can't chant, build that point of entry encouragement apparatus. That's not a good chant. You can't go to a rally and do that. It's not going to work. It's not like build that wall, which people can chant all day long to their heart's content. But other than that, I mean, I guess there's a little bit of give and take here. But other than that, I think that that's a euphemism that works really well. All right, the next one I came up with is the Democratic Voter Registration Pathway Memorial. I think Democrats will really like this one as long as they don't think too hard about what the words actually mean. A wall will, it will actually do what is described here in the Democratic Voter Registration Pathway Memorial. A wall will actually close down the Democratic voter pathway, the Democratic voter registration pathway. It'll be closed down if there's a wall. And that's why you would build a memorial to it. It's built in memoriam of the pathway that used to be there. And the memorial obviously will be hundreds of miles long, 20 feet tall, and made of steel. Obviously. Okay, here's my favorite one. Are you ready for this? This is my favorite one. This is the one that will sell Democrats on the wall. The sanctuary screen. Right? It's the same concept as a sanctuary city, which they love. Imagine the ads they could run supporting the wall if it was called a sanctuary screen. America's Border Patrol is apprehending more and more immigrants every single day. Sometimes they're detained. Other times, they're forced to go to court to defend their right to cross our border. Democrats in Congress are determined to put a stop to these practices. We want to build a sanctuary screen that will make it impossible for border security agents to get their hands on these immigrants. It's up to us to stop these brutal apprehensions. Call your congressman today and tell them to put a stop to these Border Patrol apprehensions once and for all. Tell them to vote yes on the sanctuary screen.
The committee to build Donald Trump's border wall is responsible for the content of this message.
I think even Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez would get behind that one, right? Because what does the wall do? Just like a sanctuary city creates a screen that shields a person from being apprehended by ICE, the sanctuary screen shields people from being apprehended by border control. If you're a leftist and you believe the Border Patrol is an evil fascist arm of the government, it only stands to reason that you want to protect people from it. Wouldn't it be great if it were as simple as that and we could just call it something different and Democrats would just get behind it? But honestly, there is much more to it than that. It's not just about the word wall. Most Democrats hate the wall not because they hate the word wall, but because it stops people from being able to cross into the United States illegally. And they want people to be able to cross the border illegally. Period. That's what their being upset is all about. Right now, there's a conference committee that's supposed to come up with a bipartisan compromise bill before the 3-week continuing resolution runs out on February 15th. Presumably, if they cannot come up with a compromise, either the government will shut down again or Trump will try to use emergency powers to build the wall instead of doing it through an act of Congress. I guarantee you the conference committee is not going to come up with a compromise. They should, but they won't. Speaker Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Schumer will never allow that to happen. And here is why. If the conference committee comes up with a compromise that Republicans like, a compromise that Trump likes and wouldn't want to veto, then Democrats in Congress aren't going to support it. They're going to kill the bill, either in the House or Senate. Maybe, it never even makes it to one of them. If they kill it in the House, it'll never get into the Senate. If that happens, if the Democrats in one of the houses of Congress kill the bill, then there would be a new shutdown, but it wouldn't be on Trump like the old one was. If the Democrats are the ones who kill the compromise bill, the shutdown will be on them this time. There's no way they're going to let that happen. They're going to either let Trump be responsible for the next shutdown, which is the unlikelier outcome, or the likelier outcome, they are going to let Trump try to use emergency powers because they know that activist judges on the court are going to strike that down. They know that route is doomed and that it will upset people, so it's going to double hurt Trump. So that's what they really want to happen, is one of those things. Either another government shutdown that's going to hurt Trump, or the emergency powers route, which they know is going to hurt Trump. The Democrats are not going to compromise on this because they like the status quo of the issue. They're not going to suddenly let it be them responsible for killing the next continuing resolution or an actual budget deal. They're not going to let that happen. So don't be surprised when you hear Nancy Pelosi going around saying that they're not going to compromise. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you undermining your people on the conference committee? That makes no sense. Well, it does make sense because they're not going to compromise. She is not going to allow them to. Chuck Schumer is not going to allow them to. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe on iTunes. Please leave a review on iTunes. It would be much, much appreciated. You can email the show, patriots@eddiezipperer.com. That's patriots@EDDIEZIPPERER.com. That's it for today. I'm out of here.
You'd be creating a space for violence to happen.
You just listened to Politics for Patriots with Eddie Zipper. Email the show at patriots@eddiezipper.com and please subscribe.